Hi, Dave UHRICH here. What we're going to talk about today is arpeggios. Arpeggios and a technique called sweep picking. So, these are often associated together, arpeggios and sweep picking, but not necessarily do they have to be the same thing. You can play an arpeggio without using sweep picking, and of course you can do some sweep picking with things that are not arpeggios. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to discuss them kind of together because they work that way. First off, let's discuss what is arpeggio. Arpeggio. An arpeggio, the sort of quickest and simplest definition is to say the notes of a chord played separately. But I think, and I would believe it's in Italian, arp would be like the word, or arpeggio. Arpeggio, I don't speak Italian here. The only words in Italian that I know are music words, and spaghetti, and linguine, and ravioli, and other kinds of things. So I'm woefully underqualified in the Italian language, but other than things like da capo, al fine, del segno. Anyway, so those are music terms. Ironically, the language, on an offshoot here, the language of music, for whatever reason, all the tempo markings and dies al coda means del segno al coda. Those are all Italian words. Coda in Italian means tail. So if you have a dog that's got its tail cropped, its coda is cropped, like a boxer or a pit bull or some dog that's whatever has no tail. Long story short, del segno means the sign. So arpeggio, it means to play like a harp, to arpeggiate, to harpeggiate, to basically play in the manner of a harp. And what does a harp do? It plays the notes individually. Theoretically, you'd have to strum a harp and hit all those notes. So the word arpeggio comes from that term. And so basically an arpeggio is the notes of a chord played individually. Now, you can have them ascending or you can do them descending. And they don't even need to necessarily be in sequence. An arpeggio of a chord can be the lowest note, a middle note, another lower mid, lower note, and then a highest note, and then a high mid, and then all the way up to the off the sharp, and then a low note. And it can go in different orders. But usually when we think of arpeggios, and the way I'm going to show you when it comes to sweep picking, is to, I can hold the pick, but anyway, let's go and grab the pick here for a second here. And I ended up dropping it. So I could play well with it, but I can't hold it. So anyway, this is, by the way, how you hold it. Another joke for you, or whatever. So, in terms of sweep picking, we're going to use the notes of a chord, and we're going to play them adjacent on adjacent strings. So we get into something called sweep picking. Sweep picking is when you're taking a downstroke, and then the next string, another downstroke, and the next string, another downstroke, until you get basically out of strings. Okay, and there's going to be one note on each string. And then you're going to tilt the pick a little bit and come back. That would be the whole entire group of strings, or 4 or 5 or 6 strings of an arpeggio. So, and we'll get to what the arpeggio stuff is in just a moment, but sweep picking is loosely the motion of taking one directional move and hitting a group of strings. Downstrokes, and then a group strings is an upstroke. Okay. So why they go together, and it's kind of important to kind of talk about it, is in this particular case, let's go back to what is an arpeggio. The notes of a chord played separately. So every time we say that's a C major arpeggio, what does it mean? It's the notes in the C major chord played like a harp, or arpeggiated, played the individual notes played separately. When I studied classical guitar, if you play like a C chord, right, and you have those are arpeggios. Even though there would be patterns associated, like those are arpeggios. No, not arpeggios like we hear in like a rock band or in an improvising like a jazz tune or a pop tune or something like that. But needless to say, those are also arpeggios, the notes of a chord played separately. So, for the purpose of argument, we're going to talk about arpeggios in much, much greater detail in some of the various theory videos that we have here. So I'm not going to get into super great detail, but what I am going to go is talk about there are 4 basic kinds in this particular case of handful, but we'll start with 4. 4 basic kind, of which we're only going to really do 3, of arpeggios, which are called triads. A triad is a 3-note chord, okay? 2 notes is an interval. It's not necessarily called a chord. 3 notes we would call a triad. 4 notes usually is called like a 7th chord. Now, I didn't name this stuff, so I cannot take ownership for what it's called. Dave is not the author. I did not author these names. If a triad is 3 notes, you might think that a 4-note chord would be like a quadad or something, right? Or like a 2-note would be like a dyad or a biad or some other kind of term. No. 2 notes, interval. 3 notes, triad. 4 notes, 7th chord. Whatever. So we're going to name the chords by their, by their names. And if it would be playing. So this is a C chord, right? So by definition, this is a C arpeggio. Right? Now, so let's get into sweep picking in a second, but we're going to talk about that. This is the C chord here. Now, for those of you who know some open chords, whatever, we're going to take a look at the C chord for a second. We start on the 5th string. Okay? Now, what I want you to imagine is that suppose you had a really bad blister or a bad paper cut or something like that, or you touched a stove with your index finger and you couldn't play that chord. You still got enough fingers for it, right? So you're going to play the cowboy C chord with these. Right? See, you can do that, right? So where the 3rd finger was, you're going to put 4. Where the 2nd finger was, you'll put 3. And where the 1st finger was, you'll put 2. Because, of course, you've got an imaginary blister, right? So, right? This becomes the movable shape or form for the major arpeggio. So if I move it up, 12 frets. Now I call these cowboy chords, by the way, as an ancillary side note, because they're country tunes, you know. Right? I just moved the cowboy chord up 12 frets. So, this is an arpeggio. Alright, so why does that sound cooler and faster and all the rest? Is because of the sweep picking. So what I'm going to give you real quick first is a downstroke, a downstroke, a downstroke, a downstroke, a downstroke. Once again, this is a C, an E, a G, a C, an E. Down, 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 down. Now when you get to 2 notes on this string, you get some choices. I'm going to give to pick each, I'm going to use a downstroke and then an upstroke. So we're going to go down, 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 up, down, down, down. Now that might seem like a light year leap and speed and technique and stuff like that, but that's what sweep picking can give us. What sweep picking does is it's a downstroke, and your pick is now resting on the next string. Downstroke, you're pausing on the 4th string. If you can look, that this actual pick is going to pick the 5th note on the 5th string. And when you're practicing this, you don't want to have the pick out here in space, like down, down, down. Now, of course, I'm really exaggerating that, right? Let me use a darker pick here for you. It's slightly easier to see it, okay? So, a downstroke, a downstroke, a downstroke. Now, if you notice what I'm doing here, this is the big mistake people make when they're sweep picking. They're playing a downstroke, a downstroke, a down, a down, a down. But you see how those I'm wildly exaggerating, but you don't want to have any recoil of the pick. Down, recoil, down, recoil, down, recoil. You want it down, drop, 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 as opposed to down, 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 down. Because you can't do this very fast. This, you can do fast. That's basically one motion, not 5 individual downstrokes. Down, 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 right? It's down. So when practicing it slow, you want to practice and stop. If your pick is not resting on the next string, you're more than likely not doing it correctly, or you're not getting the most out of it. You're not going to benefit us by that. Down, stay there. Now, when I play the note on the 4th string, my pick immediately drops to the 3rd string. Down, down, drop to the 3rd string. When I play the 3rd string, my pick drops to the 2nd. When I play the 2nd string, my pick drops to the 1st string. Now when I play this 1st string here, C, E, G, C, E. I'm about to play a G, C, E, G, C, E, up. And you can do it with a hammer on if you want. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I want to go down, 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 up. Down, 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 up. Now everything that goes up must come down. So now we're going to repeat the top G note, down, and now up, 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 up. So it starts downstroke, up, 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 up. So it's 1 down and 5 ups. Down, 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 up. Down, up, 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 up. Down, 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 up. Down, up, 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 up. You could, as a choice, do a hammer on. Down, 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 down. Hammer. Down. Or up, pull, pull, pull. Yeah, up. Up, pull, up, 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 up. Up, 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 up. Pull off. Here's picking. Pull-offs and hammer-offs. Picking. Hammer-offs. Okay, and all of that is with the C major arpeggio. C, E, G, C, E, G. G, E, C, G, E, C. Now, what I would do, and the best way to practice that, is to just continuously repeat it, nice and slow. But the issue that you want to be kind of focused, or the thing that you would like to be most focused on, is that the pick itself is sort of dragging if you're descending, and dropping. All right, I'm certainly exaggerating this. You don't want to have up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 up. You don't want that move, this hopping, bouncing thing. It will not work very well. I've never seen anybody succeeded at doing it that way. The whole goal here, and it's actually relatively relaxed. So that would be for a C major arpeggio. Now technically when it comes to chords, we were talking just a moment ago about triads, the notes 1, 3, and 5, meaning the 1st and the 3rd and the 5th note of a major scale, constitute the notes in that major chord. So in the case of any major scale, you take the 1st and the 3rd and the 5th notes of that scale, and that's what you get for the major chord. Now you could double certain notes, like in this case there were 2 C's, 2 G's, and 2 E's, or 2 roots, 2/3, and 2/5, like in this chord here, right? Here's a C, here's a C, here's an E, here's an E, there's a 1 G. So there's 2 C's, 2 E's, and 1 G. Still called a C chord. Now technically, that's a C. All these are C chords. C's, E's, and G's. Now again, I didn't make the system up, so this is the system that's been used for many a century here. And so if you have any questions about why things are the way they are, You might want to phone that stuff in to the guy that made those names, and he's been dead for many a century. But anyway, so as we move forward, what I want to do is take a look at the fact that in a chord, you have a major chord. With sweep picking here, down, 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 up. That's your major chord. If I want to use a minor chord, I flat third. So instead of C and E, it's C and E flat and E flat. Now in this case, C, E flat, G, C, E flat, G. Major, minor, and then another arpeggio instead of major and minor. So the minor, 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5, 5, flat 3, 1, 5, flat 3, 1. C, E flat, G, C, E flat, G. What makes the 3 or the E flat a flatted third is because in the C major scale, the E is the third. But what is the flatted fifth? Here's 1, flat 3, flat fifth. That's for what we call a diminished chord. 1, flat 3, flat 5, 1, flat 3, flat 5. Now, with a diminished chord, it does, most people would say, oh, it's got a cool name, or it's mysterious, or what, diminished chord, ooh. Okay, just because something has a name that's maybe less common or weirder or funny or different or intriguing doesn't necessarily mean it is more common. For now, a diminished chord, and we'll talk about these things in greater detail in the subsequent theory videos and stuff that are available here. But for now, let's just state that the diminished chord, I like to sometimes refer to as God's mathematical accident. And that's not true that it's God's mathematical accident, but you can always have a little bit of humor with music, can't you? All right, a diminished chord is based on the 7th degree of a major scale, and it's a triad, a 3-note chord, that we will be using for different purposes. But 3 notes, needless to say, it's still a triad. 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 for major. Minor, 1, flat 3, 5, 1, flat 3, 5 for minor, and 1, flat 3, flat 5, 1, flat 3, 5 for diminished. Now technically there's a 1 and a 3 and a sharp 5, which would give you augmented. Okay, 1, 3, sharp 5. So that's 1, 3, sharp 5, 1, 2. We'll get into what those things are later. That's another one of God's lovely little things that have occurred in music. But for now, major chords and minor chords are by far the most common in most forms of modern Western music. Okay, so I'm going to give you an exercise here to do. Okay, it's a C major arpeggio, and we're doing A minor arpeggio, an F major arpeggio, and a G major arpeggio. Repeat. A minor. F major. F. G. C major, A minor, F major, and G major. So, sometimes you'll notice I was playing with it alternate on the top. Sometimes I was using hammer-ons and pause. I was doing that for illustration purposes mostly, but you know, I would experiment a little bit with yourself. This is certainly more variations to how to do sweep picking, but this is a really, really good place to start, okay? Now, not all arpeggios begin with your pinky. There's plenty of arpeggios that'll start with a stronger finger. But for now, once again, for the purpose of illustrating, I just took the cowboy C chord and moved it up, and then we took the 3 different kinds of common diatonic triads, or most common, majors, minors, and then the diminished as well. Technically, there's a suspended second and then a suspended fourth. Those would also be triads, sus2 and sus4, but those would be 1, 2, 5, and a sus2 chord, 1, 4, 5, and a sus4 chord. But we'll just deal right now with major and minor and the one diminished. So, once again, here's your exercise. C major, A minor, F major, G major. There you go. Sweep picking and some triadic arpeggios. Enjoy.